Ramzan is here with the business news. We'll hear from him in a moment, but first a look at the headlines on Afternoon Live. Police say they've identified persons of interest in the hunt for those responsible for drones that halted operations at Gatwick Airport. US Defence Secretary James Mattis resigns a day after President Trump announces the withdrawal of troops from Syria. "30 years after Lockerbie, memorial services are held in Scotland and the United States to remember the 270 people who were killed.
Here are your business headlines on Afternoon Live. Business investment fell 1.1% between July and September compared to the previous quarter. In fact, it's fallen for three-month periods in a row. It's the worst run since the economic downturn of 2008-2009. But separate figures from the Office for National Statistics showed that borrowing fell to £7.2 billion, its lowest November for 14 years. The government is calling for businesses that trade with the EU to prepare for the possibility of a no-deal Brexit, describing it as a call to action now. HMRC has just published an update to its advice on how firms should prepare for a no-deal scenario. And production of cars in the UK tumbled by almost 20% in November compared with a year earlier. That's according to the industry's trade body, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders. It blamed weaker demand in the UK and in the export markets.
Car production numbers disappointing.
Yeah, and they're down around 20%. In fact, it's down that's compared to this time last year, and it's because there's weaker demand not just in the UK but also the export market. That's down 23%, and that's the fifth month in a row. I think this all is related to Brexit, but there's stricter regulations on emissions and what's going on in terms of trying to get cars that are right for us in terms of emissions, and so there's more testing going on, and that's disrupted production too.
And business investment has fallen again. Is that also Brexit related?
Well, on the face of it, it does seem like it. It's down 1.1%. That's the third quarter in a row, and in fact, that's the most prolonged fall since the financial crisis, and it's people like, it is actually the car manufacturers, people like BMW, like JLR, like Nissan, who are saying that there is uncertainty, and so they're not sure whether they're going to invest. But in fact, we've had this trend of a downturn in business investment since the financial crisis, so it is an ongoing problem.
And turbulent year for global stock markets.
Yes, it has been. And in fact, you look at the FTSE 100 in London at the moment, it's around 11% down this year. The Dow Jones, at one point in the year, it was actually up 8.5%, but it's now down over 7% this year. So there is a general malaise in the markets, and that's actually our first topic that we're going to talk about with our market sketch, which is Laith Khalif, who joins us from our Bristol studio. He's a senior analyst at Hargreaves Lansdown. Laith, good to see you. What do you make of the global markets? It's been a pretty dreadful year, if at the end of it. At one point, the US looked like it was going to buck the trend, but that's just not happened, has it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right there. I think if you take the last 3 months off the year, it actually looked pretty good, but it's been a grisly end to the year. There have been a number of things that have been unsettling market. The trade war between the US and China is probably the big thing, but more recently we've had the US central bank raising interest rates, and the markets were kind of expecting that, but they were probably hoping that they would hold off, and that spooked the markets a bit more recently. Now, December's traditionally a pretty good month for markets, but it looks like the US is going to be strongly down over the course of this month, and I suspect that we're probably going to have a similar jittery start to 2019.
I think I read somewhere that Dow's December is actually it's worse since probably the 1930s. That is pretty dreadful, isn't it? And just on the markets as well, oil. It's getting. Last time we spoke, it was getting just below $60. It's getting closer to $50. So, I mean, it's great news for us at the pumps, but in terms of the strength of the global economy, it's a bit of it reflects on how badly we are in terms of the strength of the global economy, doesn't it?
Hugely, yeah. I mean, it's a massive indicator of how markets see the prospects for the global economy, and a weaker oil price is very much associated with expected weaker demand looking forward. So, we're talking about trading at around $54 a barrel right now. That's down from around 80 just a few months ago. Like you say, it's going to provide some relief relief in terms of energy and fuel costs, but it's not a particularly warming sign for the global economy.
And just very quickly on car production, down again. It's not looking too good for 2019, is it, Leith?
No, I mean, the car industry is still struggling with the fallout from the emissions scandal, the backlash against diesel, and obviously quite weak consumer confidence as well. And probably one of the big things for the car industry is that it's front and centre in terms of the problems that might be seen if there's a no-deal Brexit, because it exports a lot of cars to the EU. Around 700,000 cars were exported last year, but also a lot of the components from those cars come across the channel, some of them crossing the channel multiple times. So a no-deal Brexit would be pretty catastrophic for the UK car industry. Thanks,
Leith. That's great stuff. Leith Khalif there from Hargreaves Lansdown in Bristol. Thanks for joining us. And just, I think we've got a very quick look at the markets. You see the FTSE down just slightly, Dow recovering. It's had a pretty bad week, though. And I've put the Brent crude price there, just 54, down again, getting closer to 50.
Yeah.
And the pound still weak, 126. I think against the euro it's about 111, so we're getting close to parity there.
We are.
Which is a bit worrying if you're trying to go abroad like me.
Yes, if you are. Yes, Jamie was telling us we should be saving for our foreign holidays
every month.
Every month.
I wish I could.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people feel the same. Ramzan, thank you very much.